Hollywood legend Burt Reynolds hooked up with an insane number of female celebrities over the course of his life, but one of the romances that ended up being most special to the star was the one he shared with recording artist and talk show host Dinah Shore. Although Dinah was nearly 2 decades Burt's senior, the two shared a several-year-long romance that nearly ended in the two tying the knot. Before his death, Burt had a lot of regrets about leaving Dinah many years before. Join Factsverse as we explore how Dinah Shore and Burt Reynolds left each other in heartbreak. Every February from the mid-1990s until his death in September of 2018, Burt Reynolds made a point to visit Forest Lawn Cemetery in Palm Springs, California, and lay a bouquet of flowers on the grave of legendary Hollywood entertainer Dinah Shore. Dinah passed away in 1994 at age 77. 2 decades previously, she and Burt Reynolds had shared a romance that went on to become one of the most meaningful in both legendary stars' lives. While Burt and Dinah met in 1970, Burt was 35 years old and was starting to become one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Meanwhile, Dinah Shore was nearly 2 decades the Hollywood leading man's senior at 53. Dinah had been working in the business for many decades, having risen to prominence during the 1940s as one of the decade's defining recording artists. By the 1970s, she was better known to the public as a talk show host. It was in this role that Dinah first met Burt. Burt had been a successful college football player before journeying to California and trying to make a name for himself in Hollywood. His good looks and innate charm helped him catch the attention of many of the industry's prominent starlets. Besides Dinah Shore, there are a number of other women that Burt was rumored to have been involved with during his early career, including Raquel Welch. At the time Burt first met Dinah Shore, he was living with a Japanese actress named Miko Mayama. There was even gossip amongst the tabloids that Burt and Miko were planning to get married, but Burt's first meeting with Dinah changed all that. It happened when he was a guest on her talk show. Instantly, Burt found himself so smitten, he ended up inviting her to stay with him for the weekend in Palm Springs. Dinah declined this initial invitation, but Burt didn't let up and continued pestering her about accompanying him on a date. Eventually, Burt was able to secure his date with Dinah Shore, and this date led to a several-year-long romance. Burt was aware of the massive age gap between him and Dinah Shore, but he didn't care. According to Burt, he'd never met anyone like Dinah, and she seemed much more youthful than he was mentally and spiritually. Burt paid no mind to the fact that Dinah was nearly 20 years older, but it's undeniable that the age gap affected Dinah severely and arguably contributed to her not committing to the relationship as much as she could have. According to Reynolds, his relationship with Dinah opened up many doors for him in the entertainment industry. While they were dating, Burt got to meet luminaries like Frank Sinatra, Jack Benny, Groucho Marx, and Orson Welles. All these figures were celebrities who Dinah had close and personal relationships dating back to her early years in Hollywood. Dinah was also an experienced entertainer who had a lot to teach Burt. During the years they were involved, Burt and Dinah were inseparable, but it gradually became apparent to both of them they might not have the future together that either of them had been hoping for. The two dreamed of moving to Hawaii together and building a house, but this sadly never panned out. One of the reasons that the relationship didn't work out is because Dinah didn't want to have children with Burt. Burt was looking for a wife he could have kids with, but he was so in love with Dinah, he didn't consider her lack of interest in having children a deal breaker. When it became apparent Dinah wasn't interested in having any biological children with him, Burt suggested they adopt kids instead. But the pair's Hollywood relationship ended up falling apart after only 4 years. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already, and stick around for more about Burt and Dinah. Even though Burt Reynolds was adamant he didn't care if Dinah Shore didn't want to have kids, the talk show host still refused to marry him for one reason or another. Once it became apparent Dinah was never going to tie the knot with him, Burt made the incredibly difficult decision to end the relationship. It ended after a confrontation in 1975, during which it became apparent that the two celebrities didn't have much of a future together. Although they both agreed that separating was the best option for both of them at the time, they both allegedly had an incredibly tough time with the breakup. According to Burt, every time he picked up the phone after the breakup, he had to actively keep himself from dialing Dinah's number. Years later, Reynolds did have a child. The mother ended up being Burt's second wife, Loni Anderson, whom he married in 1988. Burt and Loni went on to divorce in 1994. 1994 happened to be the same year Dinah Shore passed away. While going through the process of divorcing Loni, Burt made an effort to try to rekindle his romance with Dinah. It was then he learned she was suffering from cancer. In fact, it was revealed the true reason Dinah had refused to marry him years before was because she had been suffering from cancer all the way back then. She was in her 50s when they first met and had already been married and divorced twice before the start of their romance, and she arguably wasn't looking for another serious long-term partner. As soon as the tabloids found out about the romance between Burt and Dinah, they had a field day. Both figures were major celebrities, and the giant age gap only made the relationship that much more tantalizing. Burt and Dinah didn't mind the fodder that the tabloids made of their relationship, but Dinah claimed during the relationship that most of the things that the tabloids speculated about their relationship were false. The two spouses that Dinah had previously been married to George Montgomery and Maurice F. Smith. She'd married George in 1943, and they remained together until 63. The pair had 2 children. These were the only 2 kids Dinah had in her life, and she wasn't especially anxious to have more by the time she met Burt Reynolds. After Dinah and George divorced in 63, she married Maurice F. Smith the same year. Within only a year, she was divorced from her second husband. After breaking up with Dinah Shore because she refused to marry him, Burt Reynolds regretted the course of action he took in the relationship for the rest of his life. This is part of why the actor left flowers on her grave every February in the years leading to his own death in 2018. Burt Reynolds never remarried after divorcing Loni Anderson, but he had been married once previously. He'd been married to British actress Judy Carne from 1963 to 65. After breaking up with Dinah, but before marrying Loni, Burt was romantically involved with actress Sally Field while filming the 1977 picture Smokey and the Bandit. While Burt passed away with sour feelings about how his relationship with Dinah Shore ended, it was Sally Field that the actor claimed was the true love of his life. Sally disagreed with the late actor's deathbed sentiments and refused to attend his funeral. Now it's time to hear from you. Which part of the story was most surprising to you? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.